Another dimension really factors into this as well that I've seen in adult learning. They misjudge how well they understand new things.
Yeah.
You mentioned two great things about the factors that might lead an adult learner to overestimate their understanding of new material and how they can hopefully then maybe you can unpack how do they overcome this overconfidence.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of reasons that we all tend to overestimate how much we know. One of the most important is that we don't recognize that we are getting support from the environment, and that is helping our recall. So, one of the most common ways that people try to evaluate whether or not they've learned something. Suppose you've got a new software package at the office or something, and you've been studying it and trying to figure it out, and you got the manual in front of you, or on your computer screen, and you're sort of reading it over, and you're like, yeah, 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 right, right, that makes sense, that totally makes sense, and so on. And what you're doing is you're letting the familiarity of the explanation be a guide to whether or not you really have got it locked in your mind. So as you're reading it, you're thinking, this is familiar, this makes sense. And you're sort of implicitly comparing that to the first time you read it, when maybe it didn't really make sense. And so you're right, sort of, that you have learned something. The fact that this now feels familiar, you feel like you understand it better, you are farther along than you were before, but that doesn't mean you actually know it such that when the manual's not open, you'll actually be able to use the software effectively. That's one of the most common and damaging things people do when they're trying to evaluate whether or not they know something.
You're right, that familiarity and partial access to info, which means you have a component of that target material or maybe closely related information, gives you that feeling of knowing without actually knowing it. Meaning, like what you mentioned in your book too, students come to you say, can't believe I got that wrong. I knew the answer. But when you tell them, okay, well, explain it to me, they can't really state it. They can recollect it kind of, but not really.
And
It's familiar to
I'll
them.
bet your listeners have been that student, right? Where
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
I know it. And then someone challenges you and says, okay, explain it. And you say, I know it, I just can't explain it, right? Which you're not totally wrong. Like, there is some knowing there. You know more than you used to, but yeah, you don't know it as well as you did. Now, partial access is a little different. Partial access is the idea that you feel like you know a lot about and therefore you kind of think you probably know everything. So, for example, if you know a lot about classical music or something, and I say, "Hey, who composed this opera or something?" You may think, I can't pull it up at the moment, but like I'm pretty knowledgeable on this subject, and so if I put a little more time into it, I would be able to remember it. Same thing happens with familiarity, actually, that there's that same if something feels really familiar, that's also a cue. You know what? Even if you can't pull up all the details now, with a little more effort, you'll probably be able to get it later. And that's not completely wrong. Things feeling really familiar or having a lot of expertise on a topic does mean that if with time, you're a little more likely to be able to remember it, but it's not that reliable that it definitely means you know it.